John and Liam here from Games, Brains and Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial.com for short. And it's We're Afraid of the Dark, our Are You Afraid of the Dark talk through. Episode 8, Season 3, The Tale of the Guardian's Curse, written by Chloe Brown and directed by DJ McKell. So there's our traditional showrunner and regular writer involved in this one. And interestingly enough, this is the only episode of the entire show to feature a mummy. However, the Are You Afraid of the Dark book series later had a mummy story called The Tale of the Egyptian Mummies. So while the show never had them, aside from this one, the books did. Vanessa King starred in the children's TV show Madeline as Madeline's friend Chloe. And in a generally forgotten piece, Daniel DeSanto, of course, who plays Tucker, would coincidentally go on to be in another piece of mummy-related media. He was in the Goosebumps episode Return of the Mummy, and I had actually forgotten he was the freaking star of that one. Daniel DeSantos.
Well, yeah. What are the odds?
There you go. All right, a cast. Vanessa King as Cleo Duggan. Martin Doyle as Professor James Duggan. James W. Carroll as Dr. Chappelle Smith. Mara Rublier as the mummy / Mina the Guardian, and Danny Cooksey as Josh Duggan. It's a Tucker story, which is already a little bit because Tucker stories we haven't had many yet. But the problem is Tucker is really unlikable as a character. I didn't really want to have him talking at the start. I'd rather just not hear from him. But worse than that, folks, it's a mummy story, and if you know our Goosebump talk through, these are never good.
Yeah, I mean, and as soon as I found out that's what it was going to be, I just have an immediate bias against them. It's not like the show's fault, but Goosebumps just beat us down with those episodes, man. You know.
So we begin with Tucker being chased to the campfire. He took Gary's Ankh, going into his private drawer to get it. Oh, God, don't do this to me, show. Don't give me words and lines that make me think of, basically, Gary's old enough to potentially have a porn stash. He is old enough. He is probably about 15, 16, at least. He is old enough to have a porn stash, and the fact that he has a private drawer, and naturally, you don't want anyone going in there. I'm like, don't start with me, show.
Also, quick thing to throw out there. Obviously, I have made note of my disdain for the constant trope of sibling rivalry in these types of shows and episodes. We actually have that here between the storytellers, a sibling rivalry. So I think it's just gone too far now. It's gone too far.
It's reached peak rivalry, and there's nothing you can do about it. Anyway, some like Frank don't even know what an Ankh is, and Tucker reveals it's on a necklace. Gary's still angry, but Tucker explains that he needs it for a story, as Sam points out. Why not just ask for it, which Tucker does now, and Gary relents. It's story time, and Tucker reveals that he needed the Ankh because it's an ancient symbol everybody knows. It means life. Okay, well, clearly not everybody fucking knows it because Frank didn't, and not everybody knows what that symbol is, let alone what it freaking means. So that's a dumb statement. Tucker says the story is full of ancient symbols, but you have to know how to read them. Like, for example, the Ankh, it means life, which is a good thing. But you need to be careful because sometimes life can be far worse than anything that can ever be imagined, including death. That's just nonsense words, and most of it doesn't really apply. I know they're doing the whole, it's because of the confusion between the two things later on, but that's not quite the same as what they're suggesting here. I found it's, when they try to do these subvert, you're like, oh, we're going to say something cryptic, which is definitely going to apply. This felt like a necessarily dumb crypticism.
Yeah, for sure.
Submit for the approval of the Midnight Society. This is the Tale of the Guardian's Curse. And we begin at a construction site, one in the basement of a historical museum. A team is at work discovering a false wall, which they tear down, revealing an ancient Egyptian sarcophagus. I can never say this.
Sarcophagus.
Thank you. I really struggle to say them. It always gets caught in my mouth.
It's a big word.
I actually don't mind this intro. This felt very classic kind of storytelling. We've seen this before, even in things like Wishmar, where the ancient thing is discovered behind a false wall somewhere, and it's what's going to undo the unraveling. I was cool with this.
I too was thinking about Wishmaster during this opening, so yeah.
The story moves over to the Duggan family. Josh and Chloe Duggan, in particular, who have been raised by their father, Professor Duggan, alone, even though he's often wrapped up in his work. Now, in a minute, I'm going to say something. Let me just finish this. He tried to be a good father, but he knew more about ancient history than he knew about raising children. So, the the children, in particular, Josh Duggan, Danny Cooksey. So he pops up on the screen. And I was like, you're so familiar. Who are you?
Yeah.
And I sat there thinking, who are you? Who are you? And then it hit me. I have watched this kid in a particular film most of my life from a very young age to now because he's in one of the greatest sequels ever of all types of films. He
Okay.
is in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. He is John's friend at the arcade. Yep,
You know, it's so funny you would say that because I thought genuinely that's who it was, but then I kind of convinced myself it wasn't him because he looks so different almost in some ways. He's got like different hair and stuff. He's got like in Terminator, he's got like a sort of mullet redhead type, isn't he? Isn't
yep.
he? So like he looks so different. So I kind of convinced myself that it wasn't him, but that is exactly who I thought he was. But he is. So
It
well, there
isn't.
you go.
Yep, it bothered me, and I was like, "Oh my god!" When it hits you, because you know, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, I've seen a lot of my life, and it regularly gets watched at this point. And he is a pretty prominent role at the start of the movie alongside John, including an iconic scene where he doesn't grass up John when the cop obviously comes looking, all of this stuff. So when I realized it, I was like, "Oh my god, you did do other stuff. Well done."
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for him lying to the police officer, the T-1000, John would have got caught there and then. So he's a really pivotal moment in that timeline.
Never forget, there's a kid in that arcade who knocks as well, fucking pointing at John. What a dick. Anyway, they're due to go on vacation when their dad is called to the museum to check out what has been discovered. His co-worker, fellow archaeologist and Egyptologist, Dr. Chappelle Smith, wants them to check out their recent find, and both men are impressed with it. Professor Duggan claims that it must be from the Egyptian Temple of Light, which was robbed in 1921. The robbers must have hidden their find before the building was a museum, and it looks like the kids' vacation is cancelled. So this is a good setup in the sense that it's kind of doing that whole father works all the time, and the kids are regularly left disappointed and unable to go on holidays because and so on, that kind of thing. But also, he's aware of that. And this is where I think, God, he's not very likable. He's aware of this because he's always apologizing to them, but does fuck all about it. Basically, he's like, oh, sorry about that. I'm really sorry. I know it sucks, but also I'm going to do it anyway. Fuck you. Right?
Yeah,
That sucks, right? That's a weird
yeah,
character way to write him.
definitely.
At the lab, their theory is that it's from the Egyptian Temple of Light, and that's confirmed when they discover it contains the mummified and preserved body of Mina the Guardian. The kids who were there learn that Mina was said to be an ancient Egyptian goddess, and it's used her ring of eternity to bring forth life from the earth every spring. Dr. Chappelle Smith also says that as good as Mina was, she could also be vindictive, having the power to turn her enemies into stone. And they all work together and slowly lift the top of it off to reveal Mina's rotting, mummified body inside. So I don't mind this thing. Egypt has obviously incredible stories, varied in reality and make-believe. All of this rings true and could easily be a real story. I also didn't mind the look of the mummy. I thought it did a good job of basically wanting to create sort of mummified corpse, but also being like, kids show, can't be too much here. I think it works.
Yeah, I was going to praise the look of the mummy as well. They did a good job with it.
Late that night, at home, Josh and Cleo are still disappointed about their vacation being called off. Cleo is kinder about it and is even taking her dad something to eat as he gets so wrapped up in his work and forgets. And Josh says that dad needs a life and a girlfriend. That's a weird thing to want your dad to have as a kid. That's a weird thing to say. And then I realized, oh, you fucking, like, you know, when it falls into place immediately, I'm like, that's a weird thing to say. You want your dad to get laid? That's
Mm.
weird. And then I was like, oh my God, Mina the Guardian revival. Like all this
Uh,
immediately hit me. I was like, fuckers, they're gonna have them fall in love.
you don't need to watch these episodes, man. You can see it coming a mile off.
So Cleo brings her father some food and he tells her that he's managed to translate some of the markings that were on it. He says that there have been blood sacrifices made for Mina to ensure a fruitful harvest, and that the legend of the Ring of Eternity was well known. However, there's also a mention of an elixir of life. The elixir brings life, the ring brings eternity. Oh, there's also a curse called the Guardian's Curse, and it's horrible. There is a lot. Why make it so complicated? Surely there's a more simple way to tell this story. I would just simply have the curse be a thing, and it's like only the mummy can break it. Then a mummy comes to life. The fact that a mummy is almost not actually an important aspect of it, it's everything else. It's a ring, it's an elixir, and this curse is accidentally a part of it based if you mix the two up. So I mean, it's so complicated.
It is, but it is at least a little bit different. I mean, I thought we were going to get the typical mummy coming back to life, blah 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 type scenario. So at least it's somewhat different, even though, like you said, it's just way too complicated.
You are right, it is different, but I would also caveat by saying the mummy still comes back to life and is used up to a point, for our perspective, as the scare.
Yeah.
He asked Josh and Cleo to go to the museum to get some photos he left behind. Wow, okay, so the kids can just go to this museum after hours, no problem. That this baffled me. Who?
Yeah, I
Like, I
don't
don't
get
care if they're the professor's son, the kids. They're not being let in.
it. Of course.
They arrive and get the photos, but Josh is still frustrated and kicks where the mummy is contained. It causes the panel to fall open and reveal a small vial and a ring. And Cleo confirms that the symbol on it is an ankh, which means the symbol of life. And they figured out the items are the elixir of life and the ring of eternity. So apparently our good doctor, our good doctors and professors really didn't look this thing over well enough to not see a fucking panel.
Yeah, that bit kind of like really annoyed me. It was just like nonsensical.
Well, particularly if all it took was a kick for it to fall off, surely this thing, as it was lifted and put down, had the potential of coming loose. Okay, let's argue that it got slowly loosened, and what Josh did was the last thing to open it. There we go. That's the best I'll give. I'll give it.
Sure.
Of course, they need to hurry home and show the dad, but get into an argument of who should carry what items. This results in the vial being dropped near the mummy's hand and some of the liquid spilling onto its fingers. The kids quickly clear things up and head off as we see Mina's mummified remains begin to move. I do appreciate that they didn't, they could have done a whole stay on the mummy and then not show us anything. It's kind of like, no, it's alive, and just moves on.
Yeah.
Cleo and Josh have to go back as they've forgotten the photos and discover the mummy now gone. They see a trail of wrappings implying it got up and walked off alone, so now they're scared and they race home. Inside, they find their home ransacked and their dad nowhere to be found. In his office, they find a note, and it appears as though he had to rush off to the museum after them, basically, and Josh figures that the robbery must have happened after he left. This is all very confusing, like having this sort of return home robbery, dad missing, only to have a note suggesting he went to the museum, and like
Mm.
they didn't cross paths. Like it feels just a little bit like fillery. Like if this scene didn't exist, would it really do any harm? Not really. Particularly as the explanation is so sort of, oh, later on, this person says I did it, and that's it.
Yeah, not wrong.
Whoever was responsible is still in the house though, and they're forced to look themselves in while whoever or whatever it is outside tries to break in. The kids have no choice but to climb out of an office window and head to the museum. Cut to the museum, which is always deserted because it's night, and the dad is now to be found. They're at loggerheads over the possibility of the mummy being alive and the curse being real, but they agree that something sinister is going on. So they can't quite agree on whether or not the mummy came back to life or if it's just missing, which is fair enough. They haven't actually seen any proof.
Mm.
They end up in the basement and keep noticing a bad smell, but also find themselves locked in. A hand then falls down from the upper area, scaring Cleo, but it's the dad who had been knocked out cold. I do love some of those Are You Afraid of the Dark classic horror scare. And this is the hand dropping out from somewhere dark corner. It's the Jurassic Park hand over the shoulder, except this
Mm.
one is attached to a human body.
Mm.
Where are we up to? He's coming round her father and confused, but as they go to leave, they're confronted by Dr. Chappelle Smith. At first, they're relieved to see him, and Josh warns him that the mummy is on the loose. However, Dr. Chappelle Smith laughs and reveals that he is a bad guy and wants the Ring of Eternity. It was him who broke into their home. It's been him who's been chasing the kids, and it was him who knocked out the professor. He wants to use the ring for himself and become immortal, and if they refuse to give it to him, he will set the place alight. That smell they've been smelling, it's kerosene. I'm a big fan of that insane ramping up there. It
Mm.
goes from I'm a bad guy who wants this ring. Like I would get it. The only thing I wish it was more because he has no clue if these things are real. He just wanted it to sell it. Maybe he's like, I'm in debt to loan sharks. I need that to sell it or whatever, and I can get a lot of money for it. But I love that he's like, if you don't give it to me, I'm going to set this entire building on fire with all of us inside. Fucking hey, bro.
That's an escalation.
And that he means it because he's basically spread kerosene around the place already, which is a touch that I did not expect. It's like, oh, okay. Because he kept banging on about the bad smell. And I thought it was going to be the mummy smells bad, right? Because it's been rotting. But no, it's kerosene. He just didn't recognize it.
Yeah.
Chloe insists that the ring be given over, and Josh reluctantly rolls it over. Of course, he's not going to let them go, as they will just go to the authorities. Absolutely love that. God almighty, the fact that he literally calls those kids stupid immediately by going, well, you're not going to get away, because the moment, like, you do, you're just going to go tell the police what I did. And I'm like, right, that's a smart villain.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he then becomes stupid because Chloe asks him to show them if the ring at least works. And he's like, oh, all right, yeah, I'm excited. And he does. So he puts the ring on and he starts to glow blue. And he seems to think it works. But then the hue turns green for some reason. And then he slowly turns to a rock, which is revealed to be his eternity. So this ring does give you eternal life. This is your eternity as a rock. I guess that's an interesting twist in it. I just hate how dumb the character is to go, yeah, no worries, I'll just put this on.
Hmm. Yeah, it's true.
The dad is shocked and amazed, and he asks Cleo how she knew that would happen. And Cleo says that the ring brings eternity, the elixir brings life. He didn't know that he also had the elixir and that the curse is enacted when the ring is used alone. If he had poured some of the elixir onto his finger before putting the ring on, then it would have probably worked. And you know all of this because... What?
Yeah, doesn't make much sense.
What about the mummy though? It's here and calling out to them. It's here though and being coy, right? This is really weird. When the mummy's kind of at the back going, hey, like I thought was really silly. It looked really silly. Josh realizes that wants help. He approaches the mummy and places the ring on its finger. The mummy goes blue, then regenerates back to life as an Egyptian queen. Oh, right, no, because they poured the elixir. The elixir already went on the mummy. Yes, there we go.
That's right.
The family slowly approach her and the dad returns the elixir to her. The dad and Mina now seem to be immediately attracted to her because, you know, an Egyptian goddess who is completely out of time, been living as a mummy and resurrected, the first thing that's going to go, I'm horny for that dude. Grow up, man. What a stupid fucking thing to do.
It's come from the mind of Tucker, so maybe it makes sense.
Oh my God. Well done. Yeah, when you do it that way. Okay, yeah.
I mean, if you think about that in a lot of these stories, who's the brains that they're coming from? Quite young people. Maybe that makes them better in some ways.
These basically all these episodes should be a lot hornier.
It should be. Yeah.
Josh turns over to Cleo and tells her that he wonders if Mina likes to ski. What? Because they can go on holiday, get it? And she can be like their new mum or whatever mad, weird thing he wants. I'm going to presume he's going to have his ear pressed to the door when his dad bangs Mina later.
Have you ever seen the movie California Man with Brendan Fraser?
Of course.
Yeah, I'm imagining scenarios like that, with the family, little silly hijinks and whatnot.
We need a sequel. We need Tucker to bring this back. And as the story ends, Tucker says that the true guardian's curse was immortality and that the Chipper Smith was the final victim. Whatever. Yeah, this is nothing, folks. Yeah, it's a little different to the traditional sort of mummy stuff, but as a story and how it plays out, I found it mostly dull. My most fun I had was working out your man was from Terminator and making jokes about the horniness of the episode. That's the most entertaining part of it. Beyond that, it doesn't really do much. It's another mummy thing that's just like, the Egyptian shit's just boring.
Yeah, they just can't nail it. They just can't get it right or make it interesting. I don't know why. It's just clearly it just can't be done because like we've seen it tried so many times, so many attempts, and this is just another example where it is just very bland on the whole. But it's very lacking in sort of horror elements, I thought. And even though the misrepresents it is fine and it's well executed enough, I suppose. Even though you said it's a bit convoluted and overcomplicated, I just wasn't that interested. I don't know. Everyone plays their part well enough. The acting's fine. No complaints really. Like it's just very bland on the whole. Yeah.
It's pure forgettability. It's one of those that further down the line, and probably when we come to the tier list, it'd be like, oh yeah, this one. Oh yeah. It'll be the one where the kid wanted his dad to bang the Egyptian goddess, but was also in Terminator 2. That's how it would be remembered, which is not how the episode should be remembered.
Also, sometimes these episodes are hurt by what precedes them in terms of the episodes that come before. And I think this is another example of that because we had such a high with the previous episode, and then you come to this, it's just like takes you all the way back down.
Well, I had to remind myself and look, and it's like outside of the previous episode that we did, like this season has been lackluster for the most part.
It has been. So hopefully going forward we'll get something better.
We've got a few more to go before the end of season 3, but this was episode 8, Tale of the Guardian's Curse. What do you reckon? You got any thoughts on this one? You know what to do? Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It is gratefully appreciated. You can find us over at gbhbl.com, our full website where reviews, news and so much more goes up daily. We're also on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, at gbhbl. Just search for gbhbl and you will find us out there. We also have merchandise on sale. You can access the shop via the website.